Hello, friends, and thank you so much for downloading this week's podcast. We are so excited that you're taking time to grow in your faith by listening to these messages. That's our dream in these sermons. We hope that in some small way, they help you in your walk of faith, help you to grow into the person that God yearns for you to be. We also want to encourage you to be part of our social media family. Every day we try to post encouraging messages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can simply go to these different social media accounts and click on St. John the Divine and be part of our social media family. And if you don't live in the Jacksonville area and don't have access to a church, we encourage you that every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. we broadcast our Divine Liturgy live. You just simply have to go to www.stjohnthedivine.com. That's our church website. At 10 o'clock in the morning, click on live broadcast and you can watch our services live. And finally, we're really excited about a brand new internet radio show that we have here at St. John the Divine called Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls. It's broadcast on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Simply go to ancientfaith.com at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and click on the banner for Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls. In this show, we hope that we're kind of merging faith and psychology to kind of give you some practicality in your own walk of faith. So once again, thank you so much for downloading this sermon, and we hope to see you soon at St. John the Divine. God bless you and staying strong in your faith. So we began a sermon series several weeks ago. One of them that I'm really excited about is called Heroes. And the premise behind this sermon series is that every one of us, each of you, as I look at you, you all have people who are a hero in your life. Maybe that person is sitting right next to you right now. Maybe that hero is someone that was your mom or your dad. Maybe it might have been a teacher or a coach. But you would not be the person you are right here and right now if there wasn't a hero in your life. And just like we have heroes in our day that spoke encouragement, that helped us to be the people we are today, let me tell you something. There are some heroes that we find in the Bible. There are some heroes that we can find in our church. And one of the reasons why we have icons in our church is just to remind you that you're not alone, that there are heroes that went before you. And if your hero, a hero of our faith from the Old Testament or the New Testament, or maybe even your patron saint or the Virgin Mary, if they could say a word of encouragement to you today, what would it be? Like if they were going to tell you, you know that fasaria, that problem that you've been having, this is how you should deal with it. Or if they were to tell you, you know that problem that you have in your relationship, this is how you solve it. Or if they were going to tell you, you know, I don't feel like I've got any faith. My faith is kind of weak. I'm just kind of not in the mood. I'm not growing in my faith. This is what I would want you to hear from them. They have a message to share with all of us if we only have ears that are wanting to hear. And I think one of the things that they would tell us is, listen, I'm Noah, I'm Rebecca, I'm Isaac, I'm Joseph, I'm the Samaritan woman, Saint Photini. I was not perfect. In fact, I was a sinner. But study how I lived my life so that you can learn how to live your life. Study how I became a hero of God in my day, because God expects you to be a hero in your day. And I encourage you to go back and listen to those previous sermons. We don't have time to go over all of these people, but they all have a message for each and every one of us. But today I'm going to talk to you about who is oftentimes referred to as the father of the faith, Abraham. He's actually the father of not only Christianity, but also Judaism and Islam. He lives about 2,000 years before Christ, about 9 generations after who we spoke about last week, Noah. And in his life, he is the first one who receives a covenant from God. God comes to him and says to him, Abraham, I have a message for you. You are going to be the father of many nations. He was married to a woman named Sarah. And his name used to be Abram. But then when God came to him, he said, no, your name is not going to be Abram, which simply means just an exalted father, but Abraham, which means you are the father of many nations. And I would love to tell you that Abraham, when he heard the voice of God, and I don't know if you've ever heard the voice of God, but if you've ever heard the voice of God, it is not a normal voice. It is the voice of God speaking. And that when God spoke to Abraham, I would love for you to know that Abraham said, you know what? I am going to be the father of many nations, and I'm going to be totally in agreement with everything that you say, God. But that's not what Abraham did, nor Sarah. And if there's a message that Abraham would tell you is this: Ipomoni. Be patient because God knows best. Can you all say that with me? Be patient. He knows best. Let me show you how. And there's 3 principles I want to share with you. Number 1 is be patient even if it's taking a long time for something to happen in your life. You know, when God gave that promise to Abraham and to Sarah, he said, you're going to be the father of many nations. And Abraham's response was, it's like, how? Sarah is an old woman now. She's barren. She can't have kids. And at this time, we're talking about Sarah being somewhere between the ages of 80 and 90 years old. And they're having this debate. And so it would have been great if God would have fulfilled that promise that same year. Like 9 months later, they would have a son or a daughter. But that didn't happen. Year after God made that initial promise to Abraham, nothing took place. So much so that Sarah went up to Abraham and said, you know what? We need to take matters in our own hand. And in some of the most perplexing things that you'll ever read in the Bible, Sarah says, you know, I have this servant. Her name is Hagar. Why don't you sleep with her and have a son through her, because I can't have a child. And Abraham says, are you sure? Don't get any ideas, man. She says, yes, and he says, yes. And they end up having a son. His name is Ishmael, and he is the father of the Islamic faith today. And God comes back to him and says, Abraham, I told you, be patient, even if it was taking a long time. He was in a tent at that time, Abraham was. He says, Abraham, come on out of that tent. I told you that if you were just simply patient, that I would fulfill that promise. And some of us today, we're expecting things to happen on our own time. We live in an instant society where we send an instant message. We live in a society where we just send an email quickly. We live in a society where we're always in a rush. Check out JTB or 95 tomorrow morning. We're constantly going. And some of you today, you are waiting for something for God to work in your life. You have a dream. You feel like there's a dream on your heart and nothing is happening. And what God is telling you is, I know what's best. Be patient. And you need to know this, church family, that a moment of impatience can cause a lifetime of regret. We would say amen to that. A moment of impatience. Impatient in talking to your children. Impatience with your spouse. Impatience when driving a car and getting into an accident can lead to a lifetime of regret. Be patient in the waiting. Number 2, I think Abraham would come to us and say, listen, I didn't do this. I needed to be better at this, but I said be patient in the waiting. And then secondly is be faithful even when you think something is absolutely absurd. You know, when Sarah was 90 years old, and when God said to her that you're going to have a child, and another amazing statement that they have, Abraham and Sarah, hearing the voice of God, started to laugh. And in the Hebrew language, it wasn't like a, that was so funny, kind of a laugh. It was a laughing uncontrollably at God. And you hear God in a very fatherly voice say, are you laughing at me? You should read about this. It's in your notes today. Are you laughing at me? He says, this is an amazing statement. He says, you think something is hard for me to do? You think it's hard for me to make you at 90 years old pregnant? In 9 months, you're going to be pregnant. And talk about a moment in the history of our faith. And I just want you to know that some of you have been waiting for a long time for something to happen. Or maybe sometimes some of you think that actually you've been having this dream and this thing and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is never going to happen. Listen to me. Don't laugh at God. What He yearns for you to be is to be patient in that. I think about our church. You know, for over 20 years we began that building project that's going on Beach Boulevard right now. And I remember 20 years ago people saying, when are we going to build? Soon. When are we going to build? It was the constant repetitive question at every single meeting. And half of y'all would ask me that question. When are you going to build? And thank God that God didn't answer our prayers to build. Because in 2008, we had one of the worst economic crises since the Great Depression. 2 years later, thank God we didn't build because some company just happened to call us on the phone here at the church and said, hey, listen, we are interested in buying just a very small portion of the land of your church, and we will give you 3 times what you have spent on buying that property. Thank God he didn't answer our prayers. And some of you look back in your life and you think about that high school sweetheart that you thought you should have married. God, I need that person in my life. Thank God he didn't answer that prayer. And some of you have prayers that you're wanting to be answered and you think it's absurd. Just be patient, even when you think it's absurd. Number 3, final one, is be patient, knowing that God is working always in you. When you have a negative thing that's going to happen to you, and if it hasn't happened to you already this week, it's going to happen to you this week. Hate to be a bearer of bad news, but you're going to go through a bad time. When that happens to you, I want you to say to God, why not? I don't want you to say this to God. I don't want you to say, God, why are you letting this happen to me? But you're right that your question is God, what are you trying to teach me in this? God is constantly, listen to me, church family, put your eyes on me and I'm on you. God is trying to teach you. He is not concerned with your comfort. He is concerned with your character. And he wants you to be a character of patience. So God, I'm not going to focus on what's happening to me, but I know you're trying to teach me. Help me to see that. I leave you with this. I love this joke, and I've shared it a couple times with some of you in the past, but it's a funny story that really embodies how we are as people. There was this man that was talking to God, had a conversation with God, and he says, God, I'm just curious, what does $1 million look like to you? God says, it's like a penny. Like a penny. The man says, well, God, what does 1,000,000 years look like to you? And God looks at him and says, son, it's like a second. So he said, $1 million looks like a penny to you, and 1,000,000 years looks like a second to you. So the man naturally says, well, God, can I get one of those pennies? To which God says, wait a second. And I think sometimes we don't want to wait. We just want things to happen on our own schedule. And my message to each and every one of you is, be patient because God knows best. That you go out being patient in the waiting. A lifetime of regret can come in a moment of impatience. That you're even patient when everything seems absolutely absurd to you to happen. And that you know that when God is working in your life and something's coming against you, that you don't focus on what's happening to you, you're focusing on what's happening in you. And as Abraham goes back into those hall of fame of our pictures of our faith, he's telling you, study me. Study how I lived my life. And go out and live that life. Study how I was a hero of God in my day, because God needs you to be a hero in your day. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.